And hello, good people of the internet. It is I, Tommy Kelly, and this is Adventures in Woo. This episode, we're going to do some more one card 47's Divinations for the good people over on Patreon. And being that it is the beginning of the year and it is January, and we all want to know, will this year be better than next year? I suspect that a lot of these questions will be something along the lines of what is ahead of me for this year. Although I did ask them to be as specific as possible, so we'll see how that goes. My news, if you've been listening to the podcast, the Tommy and Spud Talk About podcast, then you will know that I had COVID over the holiday period, which was fun. I didn't have it as bad as my friend Enda did, who you might know from the vlog. He had it quite bad, really bad for a couple of weeks, and I just had, well, I mean, I still didn't have it easy, I suppose. I had a really bad headaches and really bad tiredness, and I lost my sense of smell, which was quite interesting. And what's even more interesting is that when my smell came back, it was only nice smells that came back, and still kind of like dirty nappy smells just aren't fully back, which, you know, I'm not sure I'm not okay with in many ways, but I can smell incense and aftershave and all essential oils again. So that was a nice way to start the new year. I am, of course, out of contagious zone, and I'm out of any kind of, I don't have any symptoms or anything anymore, but I have people around me who, because of the way things work out, or in their contagion, or they're in their prison cell and they can't move out or they can't go outside. So it's all a bit stressful at the minute, but you know, this is the nature of what's going on, the pandemic and all that. So yeah, the other terrible news as well, hopefully won't be terrible news, is that my music computer may have broke. I got a new computer last year. I've this one here that you can't see because it's off camera, and if you're listening on the podcast, then you can't see because you're listening on the podcast. But my old computer, which was still a really, really good computer, fairly good spec, I switched it on yesterday and it kind of came on okay as normal, and then it switched itself off, and I've gone, oh, that's interesting. And so I had a look at the case, which is the first thing I ever do, just pull it apart, and it was all condensation. And so I assume it got damp. The reason it got condensation is because it got very cold here, and I got a new gas heater because to heat this office electric-wise, it was like, you know, really expensive. So I thought getting a gas heater would be better. And it is much better, but it has kind of caused, or has shown, or has exacerbated, or has in some way, the result is that there's lots of condensation, like the windows get really, really wet. It's when the hot air hits the cold surface. And so because my old computer hadn't been on that much, it became a cold surface because it's obviously metal. So I got I was going to say a defibrillator. No, I didn't. I got a dehumidifier, and I have it beside the computer now. And I have it full of those silicone gel packets. And yeah, I have it beside the heat. So I'm going to turn it on again maybe tomorrow and see. Worst comes to worst, I suppose I can just take it apart and have the components and, you know, sell them, give them to friends, whatever it is. But it is a pain. But what can you do? It'd be worse if it was my new computer, I suppose. But bit of bad luck to start the year. So hopefully my divination for the future will be a bit better. I did promise I would do a divination one for the future. A 3-card one like I did for the, you know, what was last year about. But it won't be in this video, it'll be something soon. So, I drink tea. What do I need to focus on this year to construct a more fulfilling future? So, the adventurer. So, strangely enough, that would say that you need to do something that you wouldn't normally do. And that doesn't mean that there's kind of this thing between the adventurer is, and I suppose the explorer is, the adventurer is kind of, in one sense, doing things for the thrill of it, rather than, you know, the kind of personal development of it, which is more the explorer's, the personal development, feel the fear and do it anyway. I suppose you could say that about adventure anyway, but it's more about doing stuff. You know, rather than trying to learn stuff or to become a better person, but obviously by doing all of these experiences, you become, you know, more rounded person, all that. So it seems like you should try pushing the boat out a bit, or having a bit more adventures, doing something rather than being in the kind of, I suppose, safety. It's hard to do with a lockdown, I suppose, of course, to have some adventures, but go into some uncharted territories, have a bit of fun, you know, do things that you wouldn't normally allow yourself to do, possibly. Whatever adventure is to you, be that going on a roller coaster, or be that, you know, getting lost in a forest, or being that, you know, playing Cyberpunk 2077, which I've got extremely bored of, I will say. So yeah, I drink tea, have an adventure. And that's what your focus should be. See this year as an adventure. Tyrone Jameson, what is the current status of my ancestral spirit witch court? I'm not really sure I know what a witch court is. But let's see what this is. The depleted. So this would suggest that whatever energy has been put in it has come, like it's wasted or it's been used up. And you either need to do something different or you need to let it, have a bit of a rest, let it recuperate or regain its energy or build up its energy again. If you, so your current status of my ancestral spirit is that maybe, that you just leave it alone for a while or find some new way of working with it or in some way re-energize it. If it was a servitor, you would say that maybe you need to feed it or you need to put more focus on it. But at this moment in time, it would say that it's depleted, that it has no energy, it's kind of in the off stage rather than the on stage. So hopefully that makes sense to you and there's something you can work on. Rodrigo Franco, Capo. Hi Capo. Anything slipping through the cracks right now? Oh, this card wants it. So the opposer. So the thing that is slipping through the cracks, something is opposing you and you're not giving it the credence or the level of attention that you need to be giving it. And of course the opposer, outside forces, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a person, it could be a thing, it could be, an example would be an outside oppositional thing is if, say you wanted to get a new job and you're kind of closing yourself off from a wide range of jobs because you haven't learned to drive. And that is kind of the opposition from outside because it's, it's a skill or something like that. That's not necessarily the normal way we could look at the opposer, because it's usually like a law, or I suppose you can't drive if you haven't passed your driving test, so there is a law involved. But you can just kind of see it as a wider kind of thing, kind of what is the thing that is opposing you. And it could be a lack of skill in something, but that usually would be more the kind of domain of the devil being in the shadow work. But these kind of things can overlap in some places, and rather than just giving you the standard kind of opposer action or answer, which is, an outside force such as a person or a law or, something is opposing you, trying to see it maybe in a bit more of a wider thing, because it may be being that it's going through the cracks, or it's, you're not fully aware of it, that you might have to have a think about the opposition in a slightly different way than we normally would. So yeah. Hope that works out for you. Natasha von Steers, what's my next chapter? So, the Master. Your next chapter then would be to work on yourself and to work. The Master would be kind of in a spiritual sense, or in a not working yourself, and it's not about getting fit and healthy, say, although of course that can be an element of it. But the goal is to become the best version of yourself that you can possibly be. Or to become, enlightened, or to become whatever it is that would be the goal that you would see as being important for you on a kind of macro level, not a micro level, on a universal, spiritual, high-end, woo-woo-y type thing. So if, take up a meditation practice if you haven't, work on your an awakening. But it can also be dealing with some shadow work, and trying to looking at the things that are holding you back. And, maybe you need some more insight. So it could be looking into different kind of spiritual ideas or spiritual practices or whatever. But it's kind of that idea of the Master is the you when you have, all of your shit sorted out, when you've become the perfected person of you. And of course, that's more in a cosmological sense of not necessarily the perfected version of your personality, but the perfected of your being. So yeah, that's your next chapter. So, easy task. You could kind of bash that out in a few hours, become awakened, become enlightened, become, spiritually perfect. Yeah, so good luck with that. High magic. That was what I would suggest. Abraxas. What's the message that's been trying to come true? The desperate. The message that's been trying to come true is something that you don't want to hear. That the desperate's it's pretty much, It didn't say the depleters give it to certain contexts, the worst cards, or the worst servants that could come up in a divination. And I don't want to overplay it, obviously, but I also want to. That's the answer that came up. So it's something you don't. I would assume you don't want to hear, or it's bad news, or it's something that you're trying to avoid, or don't want to hear, or is not going to be something that's going to be pleasant, or that and as such could be a reason why you're avoiding it, or why you haven't heard it, why it's been withheld from you. So, someone doesn't want to tell you because they know it'll have the no one wants to hear bad news, and sometimes people hold off giving you bad news because they want to spare your feelings and stuff like that. So be prepared to hear something you don't want to hear, and how big that is, like mine. Come back to the thing I was saying at the beginning of this about my computer breaking. Like, that's devastating in the moment, and I didn't want to hear it, whatever. Down to I don't proper devastating, like debt, or losing a job or something like that. Or it could be, thinking job wise, I suppose it could be. That's more me kind of knowing your situation. So, but it could be something that you need to get the message, and we've talked about this. So this is more me talking that maybe it's time to do something else or something like that. But it involves some sort of element of not wanting to hear because it's bad news. But so that's the main trust of that. At the end of it's me just knowing your situation slightly. Derek Cook, hello Derek, how are you? What will the spark of motivation for the start of the year? What will be the spark of motivation for the start of this year? Well, Derek, let us see. That's interesting, because that always happens, the desperate. So, in your thing, what will be the spark of motivation is that you're going to get bored, or you're going to get sick of it, or what you're going to feel that you're in a rush, or that you're, the thing that's going to get you to want to get out of it is how shit it is, or how bad it is, or how you just dislike the current thing. So the motivation will come from, it's like, let me see, the reason why some people go on a diet is because they want to get fit and healthy, and and other people go on a diet because they just get so sick and tired of being overweight or eating shit food and all that, and it's the kind of the rock bottom, the desperation to, I just can't live being overweight anymore, or same with drinking or whatever it is. So the motivation is going to come from a kind of not necessarily a rock bottom point of view, but a place of, I just don't want to do this anymore, rather than being inspired to, by someone in a more positive kind of way, like, this will improve me rather than it'll get me out of a rush. So still, hope it works out for you. I'm sure it will. Swoon, what's the best avenue for me to pull myself out of this mental stagnation or this mental funk? And a card wants to come out, and it is the Monk. Okay, so the best avenue for me to pull yourself out of this mental stagnation is to go into silence, to kind of come back to some calmness, to some serenity, to maybe spending time on your own, not being in the hustle and bustle and the not trying to get everything sorted, not trying to do all of the things, but like to retreat to the monastery of your mind, or retreat into your into yourself. Possibly meditation practice, that being that it's the kind of synonymous with the kind of Zen monk type thing. But more about silence and quietude and simplicity, and coming back to center, rather than kind of looking for the answer or the thing out there. So even though, like, you might be going, oh, I'm bored, stagnation, I'm bored at my job, or I'm bored or whatever, at home, or whatever it is, it's still, the answer is going to be found within a kind of simplicity or quietness of coming back, and not out there. Not out in the world. It's not about going out and getting a new job. It's not about going out and buying stuff. It's not about going out and trying to read more books or solve the thing by external means. It's about coming back to yourself and keep things simple and quiet, and meditate if you're not already meditating. Casey H, should I write them off entirely, or will the person I thought I knew emerge again? Okay. The Seer. What do you think? The suggestion here would be you already know the answer, because your gut's telling you something, and that's the answer. So, I mean, I know that's pretty simple and not much I can kind of say more about it. That's just simply, you already know the answer. You know what it is. You have a gut feeling about it. So, Lulu Hambai, sorry if that's not how you pronounce your name. How should I go about getting better at writing? I know all the things I need to do, but I don't know in what order or how to implement what I've learned. I'll see what the cards say first, and then I'll give you some advice of my own. You didn't ask me, so it would be better to ask the cards first. Okay. The road opener. So, do things that you wouldn't normally do, in the sense of write, if you're big into horror, write some romance. If you're into romance, write some horror. You know, do something that is out of your genre. If you are only fictional writer, write something non-fictional. If you are, you know, a technical writer, then, you know, write fiction. You know, to swap it up. Write prose, write poetry, write something that gets you out of the kind of frame of mind that you're in, to kind of widen your area. Read some, you know, authors, or read some books or something that's completely out of your kind of normal frame of type of thing. That's, you know, that's always good advice in any kind of creative thing. When you hear a lot of music, you know, listen to music that you wouldn't normally listen to, because it'll make you better, say guitar player or piano player, whatever it is. But it's also learn an instrument that you wouldn't, you know, or listen to an instrument that you don't play. Like, so if you're a piano player, listen to cello, or, you know, listen to drums, something completely different. The other thing I would say, if this is from me rather than the cards, about writing is, once you know the structure of things, and you know, there's lots of books that will very easily explain that. To Save the Cat is one. Story by Robert McKay is another one. There's a million. Stephen King is one, is good as well. That's kind of more semi-autobiographical though. But once you kind of know that, you write some stories with that in mind, and know what's going on, and you know how the kind of story arcs work, and you know the hero's journey and all of those things, and then try to forget it. You will find that those kind of things, like the Joseph Campbell hero journey, which is like, you know, Matrix, Star Wars, but it's in all of these films that even when you try to forget these things, they tend to archetypically just come back in as well. So it's helpful to know it, but helpful not to, you know, completely write your story around it. I find getting out of the way of it as much as possible, and allow it to arrive in a, I know that's very woo-woo kind of sounding, but and not rush it, and you know, not try to demand that it is the type of thing that I want it to be. In that, if you have an idea for a story or a character, then just to see what that character wants to tell you. See what that story is, the story that wants to be, rather than demanding. Like, you might want to write a horror story, and then you find that the story that is coming for you is a love story. And it might be a love story within a horror story, but if you've completely discounted the love kind of story, or romance or whatever, then it's not going to be, it's going to be harder work, I find. Not that writing isn't hard work, it's very hard work. And the other thing is, of course, and this is the boring one, write every day. It's no matter what you want to do, what you want to learn, do it every single day. Even if it's just 5 minutes, because, you know, consistency is the key with all of these things. So that's all of the questions. I'm going to choose one card for me, because why not? And then I will do a proper 3-card reading at some point for the year ahead, as a more kind of general thing. So, card is jumping out for me. The Depleted. This is a thing that jumps out a lot at me in the thing, and I'll be back as well to just be aware for me that right now that I'm overextending. And I've been overextending for a couple of months in many different ways, and I feel depleted. I do on many different things, so I have to be aware of this. I know I talk about this a number of times, but it is kind of what's one of my major themes in that I try to do too much, and I try to cover too much, and I try to get more done, or think I'm more, and I suppose, capable than I am to get a number of things done, or I have more time than I have, and I kind of, all of those things. So yeah, very apt servant for me to be aware of that. Burning the candle at both ends leads to depletion. So yet again, the servant's telling me to chill out a bit. So good people of the internet, that's it. We do want this every month. So if you want to be part of it, you can just sign up at Patreon, any level. Although Patreon's not demanding or really pushing that I get rid of the $1 level because it's useless to everyone. And I suppose in a sense it is, that it's after PayPal, Patreon and VAT and all of this thing, no one makes really much money out of it. But I don't know, they think that the $3 thing is the best minimum. So what I can do, I think, is anyone who's on the $1 thing can, stay there forever, or as long as to do it, and anyone new would have to do the 3. But I don't know, I'll see how it feels. That was long and short of saying, if you are on any level of Patreon, you can ask these questions every month. Next week, it'll probably be either the question and answer for January session, or we'll do this 3-card reading or whatever. So yeah, that's it. That's everyone send good vibes to my computer, good healing vibes, plenty of heat and dehumidifying woo-woo, please, in the hope that it comes back online. And may this year be the best year yet. And be well, everyone, and may our best days be ahead.